Marshmallow coconut. What's fluffy side?
Oh no, I haven't opened it.
Wait, so you don't know what's in
She doesn't even know what she's handing out to
Feels
people.
like an Oreo, but it's a little squishier almost.
Wait, what? So you don't know what's in here?
No.
Okay, that's no problem.
He can't eat half the stuff in the calf. He can just give random
Oh, all fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, peanuts, all seeds.
Everything. I can't eat anything.
Except bacon.
What?
Bacon with pickles.
Well, I go to India. We'll talk more about it later this week or early next week for how class is going to work while I'm gone. But I'm going to be in India for 2 weeks recruiting grad students, leaving a week from Thursday in the evening. And there's all sorts of shots I have to get for like foodborne illness and stuff over there. I have to get like cholera and typhoid and Japanese encephalitis. I have to get rabies shots. So apparently there's wild dogs and wild monkeys that could be aggressive.
You just got stuck in front of
So I'm gonna get attacked by monkeys over there.
No, that's exactly the same thing when I first got here. I got like 2 shots here, 2 shots here, 1 shot here.
To come here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was because they don't want you bringing whatever. I don't think it was for. I don't think it was for what we have here. I think it was for what you were bringing with you. Yeah.
It was super healthy, but it made me like shoot.
I'm pretty sure.
It was like, ugh.
Well, I mean, you might have been fine in your country, but different countries have different diseases and things like that. So I'm pretty sure they were making you take shots to not bring whatever from over there over here.
Yeah. So they're afraid that you'll bring something from here over there?
No. Mine is for what's going to happen to me over there. Yeah, apparently, like you can't eat street food. The impression I've gotten is that cleanliness and sanitation is not a high priority, or even a priority over there. There may even be. That might be the first and second ingredients in most food is, I don't know, leftovers maybe. I'm not sure. It's
Do they have spider legs in there?
They have spider legs, and I think the least I have to worry about is eating spider legs in India.
Bush meat. Bush meat.
Stick to fried stuff. So you didn't eat the stuff that came out of that oil, did you? If it's not dying in the hot oil, you got problems. Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And one of the shots they have to get is like this giant gun. Mm-hmm. That's like, I mean, it doesn't look like a needle. It looks like a battering ram.
What is it for?
That one might be the typhoid. I'm not sure. There's maybe one of them needs to go deep. Yeah, we put this right into the marrow.
It's like a syringe on a golf club, and you just like.
No, I think it's actually on a gun. You know that they take a deep breath. This is gonna hurt.
For your head and cough.
But at least I'm not afraid of needles. So it's not gonna. You hate needles? My wife doesn't like them either. Okay, so let's look at the homework. Around 10:35 or so, we'll start doing some VR demo stuff. We'll talk about that then. And I think around 10:40, the pastors conference people are going to come in for probably 10 minutes. So we'll probably have to give them priority on the VR stuff, but then everybody should get to try some stuff. We'll have 4 different things set up. But let's look at the homework first. To write a method that takes a minimum and a maximum value as a parameter, displays all of them counting down from maximum to minimum. All right, so let's dump this. All right, and this method is meant to display values, Luke. So we're going to throw static in front of this guy. What does static mean? When I have static in front of a method, what does that imply?
It's owned by the class.
It's a class method. How do you call class methods? Go ahead.
Called using the name of the class.
Using the name of the class. Yep. So we call class methods using the name of the class in which the method was defined. We call instance methods using an instance of the class in which the method was defined. So we're going to say static. Well, this guy's going to be upset now since I dumped find max. So this guy's going to return nothing because we are printing out values, Luke. So static void, did I say what to call it? Just call it display range in reverse. And this guy will take an int min, an int max. All right, and then we're going to write a loop that's going to go from maximum all the way down to minimum, including minimum. So for int I is equal to max, I is greater than or equal to min, I minus minus, or I is equal to I minus 1. And then each time through, we'll say system.out.println I. Like that. Okay, so display, range in reverse, int min, int max. Start at max, keep going as long as we are greater than or equal to min. Subtract 1 from it each time. Print out the current value of I. All right, and as he pointed out, it's a class method, so we call it using the name of the class in which it was defined. It's defined inside of a class called driver. Driver.display range in reverse. So let's say we're going to go from 13 to 28. This should print out the values between 28 all the way down to 13, counting by 1.
Can you print out from 13 to 5,000?
You can print out whatever you want.
But it's only stopped at 3,000. That's what I see yesterday on my computer.
Oh, well, then you wrote it wrong.
No.
One thing.
You want to go to 5,000?
Only if the numbers are so long.
Oh, you have to scroll.
Go back all the way.
Oh, is that?
Yeah,
So if you
yeah.
start at 13, go to 5,000, you're not gonna have all.
No, there's 5,000 right there.
Well, no, but you have 13 in there still.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
How about 1?
Okay.
We wrote the method to be very flexible. It should work on any 2 inputs, including negative numbers. There's 1 to 5,000.
Goodness gracious. Okay. No,
Okay.
I got
I see
the
it.
I got the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
See, students always say it's exactly the same thing until you look at it and it's not quite exactly the same thing. It's almost the same thing.
What?
You have here.
Yeah.
All right. So questions about that one? Make pretty good sense? So hopefully these last couple of assignments they've been fairly easy. Should feel pretty doable. Some of you might be taking more time than others because of curly braces missing and stuff like that, but the logic behind it shouldn't have been overly difficult, right? Okay. They're going to get harder. I promise. So if you're bored, you're going to be terrified soon. All right. So let's keep looking at strings. We started talking about strings last time, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's weird here, did I just open this a few minutes ago? I didn't open this, did I?
No, you did.
Did I?
I could have sworn I saw you.
Interesting. All right, so we started talking about string methods last time. We introduced 2 methods. One's called length, one's called to-uppercase. Notice these guys do not have static in front of it when we're defining them. That means they're what kind of method? Instance method. So if they don't have static in front, it's an instance method. How do we call instance methods?
Using an instant of the class.
Using an instance of the class in which the method was defined. We call class methods using the name of the class in which the method was defined. We call instance methods using an instance of the class in which the method was defined. So that means in order to call these instance methods that belong to the string class, we're going to need to have an instance of a string. So something that is a string. All right, so I'm going to introduce a couple other methods here. So we're going to look at a method that returns a char. It's called char at. And it's going to take a number as a parameter. And this guy returns the char that lives at position n in the calling string. What do I mean by the calling string? When I say calling string, what am I talking about? The instance that called this method, right? Because instance methods require an instance of the class in which it was defined to call it. So the calling string is in this case, it's the calling instance of the string class that actually called this method. All right, and it returns the character that lives at position n in the calling string. So we come back out here, and I go ahead and I say system.out.println, and I say s.charat2. I'm saying give me the char that lives at position 2 in the calling string, which is s. Strings are index 0. They're 0 index, so h is at bucket 0, e is at bucket 1, l is at bucket 2, another l is at bucket 3, o is at bucket 4. So the legal characters of a string is positions 0 to the length -1. So if a string has 5 characters in it, its length would be 5. The legal positions would be 0 to 4. All right. So just like lists in as well as strings in Python. All right, so if I say print out the character that lives at bucket 2 in S, it'll give me the L. So there's my L. If I change S to BS2, so my calling string is now different. The value that lives at bucket 2 is 0, 1, 2 is an E. So it'll print out the E. Make sense? All right, so now we can leverage these things. Let's say we wanted to write a function that says print string reverse or something like that. So let's see, static void here, display string in reverse, and this guy will take a string s as a parameter. Now, does this s here have anything to do with this s up here? Separate variables. They just happen to share the same name. This s right here lives and dies with this method. Its scope is local to this method. This s up here, its scope lives and dies from this point forward in main. So from line 6 forward inside of main. That's where its scope is. All right. So if I want to display some string in reverse, whatever string is passed in here, you can call it S, you can call it LOL, whatever you want to name that variable here is fine as long as you use it by that name inside the method. All right, so I'm going to call it S. And then I want to write a loop that will go through all the characters of that string, starting with the last legal character all the way to the first legal character. What position is the last legal character in the string? S.length -1. That's the last legal position in the string. What's the first legal position in the string? 0. Okay. And I'm going to display some stuff to the screen. How do I display stuff to the screen? System.out.println, that dude?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then I need to visit every character in the string starting at position length -1, going all the way down to position 0. What's the right tool to go through all of those values? For loop. For loops are counting type loops. And I'm going to start a for loop at the length -1. I'm going to keep going till it's greater than or equal to 0, counting down by 1. Okay, so help me write this for loop. So it's going to be for what? Int I starts off as S dot length minus 1. So that's where I'm starting, is the last legal bucket in the string. That's only if I happen to use I to index that, but I is going to be equal to the value that would represent the position of the last legal character in the string. I want to keep going as long as I is what? Greater than or equal to 0. So as long as that Boolean expression is true, the whole thing will be true. What's a Boolean expression? Any expression that boils down to a single value of true or false. So we'll start at length minus 1, keep going as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. Each time through, we'll subtract 1 from I. Okay, now I want to display the character that we're currently looking at in the string. How do I do that? How do I display something? Okay, so we'll write that first, system.out.println. Okay, so now I'm ready to display something. Now the something I want to display is the current character we're interested in the string. What character is that? The one that lives at position I? Okay, so how do I get the character that lives at position I in the string?
S, open bracket, I.
Okay, how do we do that better? That's how you would do it in Python, right? If we had a string in Python, we index it in using array syntax like that. Austin seemed to forget that we introduced something today for our health. All right, go ahead.
S.char@.
S.char@. I. Okay. Yeah, typically when I introduce functions, it's for no good reason. Yeah, I don't intend for you to use them. Just ever. Yeah, but, I mean, really, it's just a time fill is what we're going for. I just kind of release things out there. It's like, you're never going to use this. All right, so we ran out to Home Depot. We got this new little function here called char@, that lets us extract or get a copy of the character that lives at a particular position in a calling string. I'm going to go ahead and use that guy in here and say, whatever S is, I want to get the character that lives at position I in that string. And I'm going to print it out, Luke. You got that, Luke? I'm printing it. Yeah, not returning it.
I see.
It's a print. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to reinforce this. The Luke rule. Yeah.
They're saying I should return it first.
not saying that. Go ahead.
I'm just curious. So the char, it will make whatever value hold that bucket in the string a char.
That's what a string is. It's a collection of chars. Yeah. So clarifying that. Did I say that? Yeah, collection of char primitive types surrounded by double quotes. Yeah, so strings are already filled up with chars. Char@ lets me pluck one of them. Say, I got this guy. Make sense? Covered in ants, of course.
That's too big.
The chars could be that big. I have big hands.
No, that's a string. This is char.
You enjoy your cookies. Cookies. This is a string. These are strings with double quotes around it. Cookies.
I didn't remember from her, so I just came back and they were there. I was like,
they're from her. She was handing out random stuff outside of chapel, apparently.
oh, okay.
It's like, here, I don't know what's in this.
Should I be concerned?
Yes. Yes. Okay. All right, so display string in reverse. We're going to pass it some string. It's going to count down. It's going to go through all the integers between the length of that string minus 1 and 0, subtracting by 1 each time. Each time through, we will extract that particular char. Now notice, or note, this does not change the contents of our string. If I say, give me the char that lives at bucket 2, it's going to give me a copy of the char that lives at bucket 2. It's not removing it from my string. My string will be intact when this is done. All right, and I'm going to display that. So now I can go ahead and call this guy. Now, how do I call display string in reverse? Is it a class method or an instance method? Class method. How do you know? Static. How do we call class methods? Okay, so. Oh, good. Want this gone? Okay. Java has a problem with this. Why?
I remember there being a driver.
Well, driver's the name of my class here.
Oh.
And we said this is a static method, so we call it using the name of the class. So this is driver.display string in reverse. But I want to print some stuff, right? So when I print stuff, don't I use system.out.println? Ah, this is not returning a value, Luke.
Oh!
Okay. This guy returns nothing. It's void. It does not return a value. So what I have right here will not boil down to anything. Therefore, println has nothing to print. Okay. My function itself does the printing. All right. So another common mistake programmers make. Okay, that's kind of the opposite side of it. So on one hand, you're writing a function that either returns or doesn't return a value. But then when you call it, make sure that if you're going to display the value, make sure you're displaying something that actually is something. Go ahead.
This is slightly off topic, but what's the syntax for like asking a question in the console?
Asking a question at the console? Oh, to like say, please enter a number. It's scanner. We'll do it at some point, but it's a scanner dot next line.
Oh,
okay. Okay. So display string in reverse. I'm going to pass it S. What should the output of this program be?
String in reverse.
Watch your pronunciation.
It should be hello.
Almost hello. It should be OLLEH, ole.
Ole.
Except if it's kind of, I think it might be a Hebrew word, so it's like a at the end of it. Ola. Ola. All right, so. Riba. Okay, so there's hello in reverse, and if we change this to S2, it'll do elephant in reverse. So we've written this function to be generic, right? Okay, so now we want to look at concatenation. Anybody remember what concatenation was from last semester? Go ahead. Okay, so gluing some things together. Python had the rule where both sides needed to be a string, right? In order to glue them together. In order for that plus sign to be treated as a concatenation operator, both sides need to be a string. Java does not have that rule. In Java, only one side needs to be a string. And if you remember, I mentioned, was it back here maybe? Java is a string-based language. We have something in the format of a string. We can easily get it into other formats. Java works really easily with strings. So concatenation, we have an operator. It's the plus operator. Operator when at least one side is a string. All right, so for example, if I say hello, concatenated with a 5, this would produce the string hello 5. Make sense? Okay, so come back in here. So for example, if I say string S3 is equal to S concatenated with S2, and then I say system.out.println S3, I'll have hello elephant concatenated together. Similarly, instead of passing S2 in there, can I say display string in reverse S plus S2? Is that a legal input?
Yeah.
What does string in reverse take?
One string.
One string. What is S?
A string.
What is S2?
A string.
A string. What is a string concatenated with another string?
That's different.
It's a string. It's a different, well, presumably a different string. It depends what was in S. If one of these guys was the empty string, it wouldn't necessarily be that, right? But this should be the two strings glued together. Print that out. So there it is in reverse. Okay. Another example here. So if I have int a is equal to 145, like that, and then I say system.out.println, the empty string concatenated with a. I'm going to put that in parentheses. Dot length. Is that allowed? What's dot length? As far as we know.
Like the string.
That's an instance method that belongs to the string class. That happening boils down to the number of characters in a string. What's a? That's an int. What's this guy right here?
Empty string.
It's an empty string. How do you know it's a string?
Double quotes.
Double quotes. We see the double quotes. There's nothing in between. This is called the empty string. So the empty string, is this guy the addition or concatenation operator?
Concatenation.
Why?
Because that was a string.
At least one side was a string. Okay, so this guy's concatenation, since at least one side was a string. So what kind of value is this? A string. And can I call a string, can I get a string's length?
Yep.
I don't need a variable. I don't have to say like S4 is equal to empty string concatenated with A. I mean, can I do this? Can I say hello.length?
Don't see why not. Well,
This guy's an instance method of the string class. What do we need to call an instance method of the string class?
string.
An instance of the string. Is this a string?
Yeah.
That is a string. So this would boil down to a 5. There's our 5 right there. And if I set it back to what I had it before, this will be empty string concatenated with our A. So that's going to be the string 145, which has a length of 3. See how that's working?
Uh-huh.
All right, so for our homework, and then we'll break into the VR stuff.
Yeah.
We want to write a function that takes a string as a parameter and returns, Luke,
Oh, I don't know if I can do that.
that string in reverse.
What if we print it?
Don't do that. So you should, that's a 0 if you print it. So you should
All right, Luke, I'll make sure you do that.
build a new string that is the original in reverse.
I think we have the same thing.
Hint. Empty string is your friend.
So you're gonna say hint, return it.
So is concatenation. Make sense? So if I passed it hello, it would return a string containing OLLEH. If I chose to then print it, I could, but the function that we're writing will return that. Make sense? All right. So several people who have done VR stuff before, can you run the various stations? So what we have is in here, we have 2 Oculus Go's, which are these portable things. I think one of the experiences we have on there is like the Jurassic World VR experience where you're like sitting there, you can look all around 360 and see dinosaurs and stuff like that. And then I also we have the 4K version of the NBA Finals, one of the games. So you can kind of see Future of Sports where you'll be able to watch, you can watch in 4K as if you were at one of those basketball games. Sometimes you'll be on the rim where you can watch the baskets coming in. So you'll see Steph Curry shoot a ball and you'll watch it come right there like that. You can turn anyway. It's not driving you. You get to look at the whole thing. You see other fans cheering. Sometimes they put you on the sidelines, things like that. But you can kind of see where, and they're already doing this with sports now, right? Like Major League Baseball usually broadcasts at least one game a week in VR. NFL, I think, is going to do the same thing this year. But within the next 2 years, the way we're going to start watching sports is what you'll see in here. In the room over here, we're going to have Beat Saber on an Oculus Rift, which is kind of a cool game. It's kind of Blaine's favorite, I think. Is it your favorite?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And then there's another game over there that we have set up. It's called Super Hot, which is like a shooter, but everything's like in slow motion. So if you're looking at them, if you're moving, they move. But when you're not moving, they're paused. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So I encourage everybody to try all of the different things. So maybe split up equally across the stations for right now. Who's going to run the 2 goes? Somebody who's familiar with the Rift stuff should probably be over there. I have both games already started. So both games are running on the 2 Rifts over there.
That's right.
Let's have the 2 goes in here, and then we're going to have some pastors visiting here in a few minutes, so we'll probably let them cut line. But then we'll be able to keep going. Sound good? All right, so go ahead and split into the different groups.